the vast silence of this early morning, the residents of San Giovanni Bianco lay sleeping, resting their weary heads after their laborious work. In a few short hours, the farmers of this rural village high up in the mountains will be leaving the warm embrace of their wives to walk miles in the morning dew. But before then, getting a good night's sleep is vital to their way of life. Well, that is except for one man. In the near dark, a window shows evidence of a burning oil lamp, and inside, the sound of a pen scratching against paper fills the void. This man has spent the past few weeks contemplating a very specific act, playing the scenario over and over in his mind, fixating on every gruesome detail and every possible outcome, as he is utterly obsessed with the concept of revenge. Almost as if he is attempting to imitate the Reaper himself, he has a list containing no less than 40 names. 40 different people who he personally believes have wronged him and utterly ruins not only his business, but his life. Now that the man has finished abusing the paper with his erratic writing, he places it in his pocket and stands, with his aching bones clicking at the simple task. At 54 years old, you would never know that a man of this calibre has just laid out a cold and calculated plan, and if he is successful, he will bring the neighbouring village of Camerata Cornello to its knees. Gently moving the chair back under the table as he doesn't wish to wake his family, the man calmly walks towards his gun cabinet while rifling through his pockets to find the correct key. He contemplates using the traditional lupara. Its shortened barrel and immense stopping power would definitely send a message and be more than sufficient to do the job. However, he has something more special in mind for this specific task. With its walnut stock, polished barrels, and its ability to load 3 shells at once, it's a fearsome weapon that would strike fear into anyone unfortunate enough to be staring down its 3 barrels. Filling his pockets with shells and fully loading the chambers, he steps outside, carrying the triple-barreled shotgun. The early morning dew sends a brisk shiver down his spine as the town of San Giovanni Bianco begins to stir from the long night. The farmers can be seen leaving their homes, heading towards the fields, wielding their lanterns like fireflies in the dawning light. The rolling hills of the Italian countryside beckon to the man as he pulls out his watch and checks the time. It's just past 5 a.m. If he starts moving now, he can be in the village of Camerata in around 40 minutes. With a stride, he crosses the bridge, the sound of the lazy river attempting to cool his rage, and catches up to the farmers. After sharing some pleasantries, the man breaks off from the group as they head to the fields and he heads for his target. Each step, he can feel his anger becoming more potent. And after 40 minutes, he stands atop a hill looking down at the beautiful village of Camerata Cornello. Over the next few hours, the streets of this sleepy little town will flow with blood, and the roars of his shotgun will shake the surrounding mountains and hills. Like a true prophet of destruction, Simone Pianetti will soon commit what is now known as the Camerata Massacre, and become the legend known as the Avenger. In this small village on the outskirts of Camerata Cornello, the rolling hills and lazy rivers provide the perfect background for anyone wanting to live out their twilight years in the humidity. Set away from the steel mills and ironworks of the larger cities and towns, the people here follow much more traditional values, and hard labor is considered to be the most respectable way to earn your living. However, the wealthy household of the Pianetti family is currently threatening to destroy that peace. The day started with some normalcy, with Giovanni Pianetti heading into his study to go through his accounts, the endless paperwork being the bane of this man's existence, while his wife, Vittoria, began breakfast for the family, always doing her best to bring joy to the busy mornings. But the 20-year-old Simone, awoken to the smell of his mother's cooking, climbs out of bed in a foul mood, and even the beautiful smell drifting in from the kitchen can't soothe his anger. Barging into his father's study, he demands to know what Giovanni plans to do about the family inheritance, a conversation the two men have had many times, but Simone still wishes to know why his father won't hand over the legacy. What had started as a normal day quickly spirals into an extremely heated argument. The bombardment of accusations coming from Simone are starting to cause the usually calm-tempered Giovanni to reach his boiling point. His son has done very little with his life, much to Giovanni's disappointment. After being born on the 7th of February 1858, all Simone has done is chase after the village girls, get into fights with the local toughs, and do odd jobs around the area with no clear direction of where he wants to go in life, all of which his father finds distasteful. He doesn't want his son to squander the decent wealth the family has acquired. Giovanni worked hard for it after all, so why the hell should he just hand it over to someone who can't appreciate it, let alone a man? No, a boy who has no desire to pursue any form of a career. However, Simone finds his father's attitude to be an insult to not only his character, but even the family's honor. This isn't an unusual stance for the fiery young man. Even when he was a young boy, he showed signs of having a short temper, never being able to leave a question of his manhood unchallenged, almost thin-skinned, some would say. Giovanni wonders what went wrong for his son to become so entitled. When Simone was a young boy, he would go exploring the endless hills and forests surrounding the family home, finding all the creeks and woodland Mother Nature kept hidden from the rest of the world with his friend Antonio. The two boys to this day are still utterly inseparable, and whatever mischief happened in the village, it was almost guaranteed it was committed by these two rambunctious kids. He showed a hunger back then, a hunger to learn, a hunger for adventure, but his current stance wounds his father. Simone is now arrogant and lazy. As the two men continue to butt heads, each being as stubborn as the other, Simone becomes quiet, a warning sign to many who know him. It's clear he needs to teach this stubborn old fool a lesson in humility. Simone simply walks over to the wall, grabbing the shotgun from its mount. The family always kept it loaded in case anyone in the surrounding hills decided the lavish home would make a beautiful bounty, and the two men lock eyes. And with calm and calculated malice, Simone raises the firearm and pulls the trigger. The explosion that erupts inside the small office causes the windows to tremble, and the shot peppers the wall beside his father. The blast causes both men's ears to ring as they are temporarily deafened, and the choking smell of gun smoke fills the air, but no one says a word. It is not known if Simone was actually attempting to kill his father, but Giovanni is absolutely shocked at his son's reaction. Simone walks over to his father's chair, placing the shotgun on the desk, and just sits there with a proud smile. It is not known who called the authorities, but within a short amount of time they arrive. Simone is walked out of the house by the carabinieri, the Italian state police, and through the entire process of being booked, interviewed, and taken to a holding cell, he is calm and collected. He made his point, and that is certain. After reaching an agreement with the chief of the carabinieri, Giovanni has Simone released with no charges. The message was understood, albeit reluctantly. Giving him an equivalent of 8,000 lira, nearly $38,000 in today's currency, as a peace between the two men and a way to get him to drop his pursuit of further violence, Simone, with the help of his best friend Antonio, pack a cart with their worldly possessions and leave their place of birth to find their fortune in the one place he felt a strong-willed Italian could. In the upper New York Bay, it's as busy as ever as many of the longshoremen are preparing for the new arrivals. For you see, the usually gentle waves today are being disturbed by a ship carrying hundreds of passengers hoping to start a new life. The bellowing horn ripples across the waters with everyone on deck flocking starboard to bear witness to the towering buildings and smokestacks. The immense city is in the full force of the Industrial Revolution and brings a tear of joy to the new arrivals, including Simone and Antonio, who are already prepared with their steamer trunks and other luggage. After getting off the ship, the two men spend a few days painting the town red with their new fortune, but soon after, Simone realizes it'd probably be wise not to burn through his funds on whiskey and women. After renting a warehouse and purchasing a sturdy wagon with a pair of strong workhorses, Antonio being paid as the driver, the two men set out into the Italian neighborhoods to get a few buyers for their new business. With a backlog of stock, his business starts booming almost instantly after his first shipment arrives. Loading the wagon, Simone and Antonio travel through the neighborhood stocking the fruit vendors' stalls, and with the fine wines, he strikes a few deals with the local restaurants in the area. But as the money enters his hands, Simone just can't resist living the lifestyle of a bachelor, which usually means taking the local girls out for a night on the town. Of course, their parents are horrified by the swabby businessman, and he is quickly labeled as a ferocious womanizer, due to his carnal ways. But there is a problem Simone doesn't realize he has. You see, his success doesn't go unnoticed. In the deep underbelly of this city, there is a cancer that finds its way into every hard-working family to take what they believe is theirs. The cancer is known as the Black Hand. These local mafia families are experts in intimidation and extortion, forcing many business owners to hand over the large majority of their profits for their protection. Of course, there is always the one owner that refuses to pay, but a few smashed windows or maybe even a broken jaw is a good incentive to make them change their minds. If not, well, accidents happen. The Black Hand do not fear the law, and they are willing to get what they want by any means necessary. They see America as a virginal land just waiting to be ravaged. On one of his usual rounds around the neighborhood, Simone is handed a letter by a young boy before they quickly run off into the crowd. It demands he pays protection money, as the last thing he would want is for his stock to go missing, or even worse, his warehouse to suddenly burn down, perhaps with him in it. The thinly veiled threat is signed with a typical drawing of a black hand and dagger. Feeling utter disgust, he crushes the paper in his broad calloused hands and throws it away. If these men, if that's what they think they are, want the money that badly, the least they could do is extend the common courtesy of meeting him face to face. A few weeks later, he gets his wish. He is confronted by the leader of the local area who looks over this rebellious imbecile with utter contempt, offering him one last chance to change his mind. But Simone is as stubborn as ever and spits on the offer of protection and finds the threat to be a grave insult to his character and adamantly refuses to pay. Seeing Simone as a fool, a simple country boy with no sense of the real world, the man simply tells him that he's going to regret his decision before walking away. Trembling with rage, he later tells Antonio what happened, ranting about these parasites suckling on the underbelly of the hard workers. But the truth is, and it wounds him to admit it, he is scared for his life. And in this fear, Simone does the one thing that seals his fate. Controlled by fear, he heads to the police station to file a report on the attempted extortion, and the investigating officers are astonished that this young man has come forward as he has broken a cardinal rule. By breaking omerta, the code of silence shared among the criminal underworld and sadly forced onto the victims of their trade, the police now have a witness willing to come forward and testify against the ringleaders, plaguing the neighborhoods with violence and corruption, and of course, they pounce on the opportunity. Over the next few days, some members of the Black Hand are arrested and charged, but many remain free. Simone was already in the group's bad graces, but with this act, he is now just painted a target on his back. Within a short period of time, Simone's business starts to fail. The shopkeepers refuse to buy his stock, the restaurants pull out of their business deals, and the fruit vendors look to their shoes with embarrassment and sadness as they turn the man away. He understands they have to do what they must to keep their families safe, but he still feels a level of resentment towards these people he called friends. He can't understand how they could greet their customers or look at their families with smiles when their honor has been so gravely insulted. Now with so much leftover stock and many of his shipments arriving damaged beyond repair, the expensive bottles of wine flow down the New York streets like a claret river, and on one occasion, Antonio is beaten and robbed by a group of street thugs. As a last resort, Simone sends a letter to his father explaining the situation and of course that his life is in grave danger. With very little funds left, he asks him to send a ticket so he can escape from New York and take a ship back home. As he waits for his father's response, the final revenge by the Black Hand is set into motion. Going inside the warehouse, Simone calls out to his friend as he locks the door behind him. He notices the office light is on, but there is no response. As he opens the door, he finds his childhood friend slumped against the desk. His face is beaten and bloody, and his chest is riddled with holes. Antonio, his best friend, has been killed. Over the next few days, Simone goes into hiding, dissolving any stock he can until he is finally able to leave New York with the ticket his father sent, and with a small sum in his pocket, the statue that gave him a sense of freedom and a sense of excitement now sends a feeling of dark rage into his bones. What Simone doesn't know is that these events are nothing compared to what is to come.